p.m. It is Monday, May 13th, 2019, and we are located here in the TCU High School Band Room for our May board meeting, calling it to order at 6 p.m. The roll call finds all members present, and we will begin tonight's meeting with the administration report.
It'll bring me back in there. Good. Okay. Well, each month we do have updates from our various departments and school sites, fitting with our 4 strategic directions. And I will highlight a few of the things, but really do encourage everyone to take time to read through them because there's great information throughout. From our community ed department, we have within our marketings and communications specialists. Ms. Crabb has been working on the parent survey, and we're pretty close to having that finished, so we'll bring the results forward to the board at a future work session. We have she has completed the summer district newsletter, and that was mailed out in April. Mr. Wilbright has been busy with lots of different meetings. He did, though, host the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce board meeting to actually be held here at TCU High School. And they had a little walk-through window tour of the additions, which I've heard from community members that they really appreciated. Another piece that, a little bit of an update here on our preschool registrations and RAP. You can see some numbers here that Mr. Wilbright has shared. We are, what I'm understanding, ahead of where we were a year ago, and at the May work session he will bring forward a full report for where we are with pre-K and with RAP registration. We've also received another literacy grant from Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, which is always wonderful, and that donation or that grant is to distribute 400 books to families in need throughout our communities and at early childhood screening, so that's a great thing to do. And finally, within our youth and activities, they have a chef's tournament going on this Saturday at the American Legion in La Center, and it looks like we have 13 students who've already signed up to compete, so that should be fun. One thing I do want to highlight within further activities, kind of a big community ed month here as the spring's coming along. On April 27th, our Titans Special Olympic swim team competed at regionals at Gustavus, and in hearing from a parent on a child who participated, it was just an incredible event. The Gustavus swimmers were there cheering them on, and the students just ate it all up, which is exactly what they should do. And we do have some students who qualified for state, which would take place in June at St. Thomas University. And we're hoping to have those 10 athletes be able to go on to state. And we also then have unified volleyball regular season ending this week, and 2 teams down in St. Clair competing in regionals. So that's exciting as well. Within our business office, always lots of things going on. I'll leave the finance award for later on. But I did want to highlight here that we were officially notified of the summer food service site and sponsorship applications being approved, and we kind of anticipated that already, but it's always good to get the final signature and go ahead. Within our TCU Lonsdale, lots of things happening. Our students getting outside with our 5th graders recently visited Gibbs Farms in St. Paul, experiencing what 19th century pioneer in Dakota life might have been like. The good old days, I'm sure, as they're said, but they're definitely hard-working times. We also were a part of the 10th annual Arbor Day event at TCU Lonsdale in the partnership with the City of Lonsdale, and it did match up with the 10th anniversary of Lonsdale having their Tree City designation, and so 10 large trees were planted. Whereas last year, in the years past, there's been some pretty small ones planted, and so the students who planted them before had a chance to go on over and take a look at the trees they planted last year, and this one, as they saw the big ones, were like, oh, these are so nice and big now. So it was really fun to see. At Tri-City United High School, highlights in particular within our raising capacity for engagement and dialogue, we have had 2 students earn the rights to be a part of the All-State Band and All-State Choir. Congratulations to Aria Mink for All-State Band Award and participation, and Carolyn Michael for All-State Choir. And they will they'll have a week rehearsal up, I believe it's in St. Cloud area or St. Ben's?
U of M.
Doggone it, they moved it on me. Didn't they used to be St. Cloud?
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to the U of M, thank you so much. And then they will perform next February at State Convention, and that Saturday is always a wonderful event. And congratulations to Mr. Jeff Eppen, who's been selected as the 2019 Southwest Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals Assistant Principal of the Year. And it's a real honor when your colleagues recognize the work that you've done. And thank you to Mr. Fitter for nominating him. At TCU Montgomery, again, throughout our district, we've had lots of state and local testing going on. Those are all wrapping up. But something that I want to highlight here is, win time is that what I need time. You're going to hear a little bit about that through our title information this evening and on interventions. But I know they've been working hard to dig in on how they might be able to make that even a stronger vehicle for student growth. At TCU La Center, they're also working within the win time and adding a resource in next year with the, it's called a leveled literacy intervention system. It's some additional resources to be able to really get into that deeper goal of literacy intervention and a smaller group settings. And within our kitchen, we always like to see what the favorites are lately. So we're hitting the end of the year, and some of the April highlights were Stromboli, Substation, Asian Fusion Station, Pasta, 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 and dessert of the week is a chocolate chip cookie, but I don't know what WG stands for.
Whole grain.
Whole grain. Duh, okay. All right, there. I was going to say, wowza, gotcha there. So anyway, lots of great things going on. Summer meals will begin the day after students are done with the school year on May 22nd and go all the way through August 9th.
Thank you, Superintendent Weissler, for that update. High School Student Council report. Do we have any? Yes, please come forward. Thank you for coming.
Okay, so the last week of April, we did safety week for the students at the high school. We did ghost out. We had a speaker come in and talk to the students. All week we posted facts around the school and had them in announcements. And then one day we did a seatbelt check and handed out lifesavers to those who had seatbelts on. And then we brought the kids to the mock crash.
And then last week we did the teacher appreciation where we passed out a survey to them and we brought them different items that they had signed up for. We also did ditch cleaning this past Sunday on the road to Montgomery. And we're starting a new thing with final groups for kids that have finals coming up during advisory. We're working on getting groups together that have similar finals so that they can use that time to study for them. So it's been quite a busy month for us.
Your ditch cleaning, do you have a sign that states that it's the high school student council that's cleaning that, like other places?
Yeah, I believe it's on the sign.
Okay, great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you
Thanks for the new idea and additional supports for our students.
Yep.
Hectic time.
Moving on for approving the agenda. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ashley, excuse me. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the sign carries, or passes 7-0. Under the consent agenda, approval of the minutes from our April 8th regular board meeting, the approval of the minutes for our special board meeting on April 22nd, personnel, new hires, Brooke, Gnerer, speech and English pathologist in the Montgomery High School, Lonsdale, Leisel Theusch, math, 9th grade, Montgomery and Lee Center. Noah Stevens Brown, middle school band, Montgomery and Lee Center. Amy Eppen, special ed, Lonsdale. Employment ending, Sheila Schoenbauer, head cheerleading coach dealing with football. John Fredrickson, custodian, Lee Center. Samantha Dahlke, paraprofessional, Lonsdale. Samantha Conway, 6th grade in Lee Center. Julie Trnka, paraprofessional, Montgomery. Hindy, Saemrow, assistant FFA advisor, and leave of absence Deb Matza, cook, Lonsdale. Contract and work agreement policies, 2019 ECFE, school readiness, staff and para work policy. Policies, these are the second and final reading. 404, employee background checks. 601, school district curriculum and instruction goals. 603, curriculum development. 604, instruction curriculum. 613, graduation requirements. 614, school district testing plan and procedure. 615, testing, accommodation, modification, exemption for IEPs, section 504, plans and LEP students. 616, student district system accountability. 618, assessment of students' achievement. 619, staff development for standards. 706, acceptance of gifts, TCU. 706, again, the form for that acceptance of gifts. 802, disposition of obsolete equipment and materials. And then over here, the approval of minutes, approval of bills for $1,490,979.39, and then the finance report. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kevin. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Josh. At this particular time, before discussion, I think I would like to have Superintendent Preisler just re-explain to the public and to our board again about the acceptance of gifts, because that is a new policy for TCU.
Yeah, thank you. The acceptance of gifts, in the past, we have had the policy, but we did make some changes to it as far as the resolution aspect. And so what this is basically saying is that all donations will be brought forward to the board, and the format that we will use is this form. And depending on when we receive some donations, this could be a monthly item or an every other month. Basically, what we would be doing is, as a group of the donations, they would be listed here of when they were donated, who the donor was, if in fact the donor feels comfortable to have their name indicated, and then if they have a specific nature or aspect that they are hopeful that the donation be used for, and then the amount. It is important for the board to know that the board can accept the donation if you feel that it matches with the mission and service of the school district, and so that it's not a donation that is counter to our mission and vision in educating students. So it's just a positive way to be able to accept with graciousness donations, to be more clear and transparent with our public on donations that are received, and thankful for people to think of TCU as a place to have any kind of financial gifts or donations to help our students. So we will begin this pending approval tonight at our next meeting, or the next time we have the donation that comes forward. I would like to speak just to a couple of other items on the consent agenda. I do want to clarify that Ms. Schoenbauer and Ms. Saemrow are only ending their employment as these co-curriculars. They are not ending any other employment. Continue on in their very important roles. And I do want to take a quick moment here, or a moment I should say, to recognize John Fredrickson, also known as Dude, who is retiring on July 31st. He has served the previous La Center and now currently Tri-City United for 35 years as the head custodian. And, you know, he brightens up the building. When he's walking down the hallway, the kids know him. He's a hard worker. It will be very difficult to replace his historical knowledge, and hopefully we'll be able to tap him on the shoulder when we're digging in pipes and stuff. But I know we all really value the work that John has done, and just his whole attitude as an employee. So.
I also would like to thank the policy committee again for your hard work and going through those policies. Thank you very, very much. At this time, we have a motion by Kevin, second by Josh. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Titan Pride Awards. Mr. Johnson, please.
Dr. Preisler, members of the board, I'm going to recognize 11 of our fine individuals tonight on some of their accomplishments. First one, Isabel Truman. Isabella Truman, I don't think she's here. She was our state place winner in speech, which was, I believe it's the first time we've had one of them since we were at TCU. So, second group that I want to recognize is our FFA Small Animal Vet Science team. And we have a pretty fantastic FFA program here, but we had 2 different teams place third in the state tournament. So our Small Animal Vet Science team, we have Lizzie Trnka, Shariah Steese, Isabella Hennon, and Michaela Malika. So if you would come up here. So let's get to your board.
Congratulations.
Great job. Congratulations.
Congratulations, nice job, thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Our next team that finished third in the state this year in FFA was our FFA Poultry Evaluation team of Philip Roth and Sydney Walters. Come on up. I'll recognize the one that's here. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Then the last group that I want to recognize, along with the very successful FFA program, we have a fantastic art program. Sibley East held the regional art exhibit over there a few weeks ago, and we had 4 people that were considered Spotlight of Arts winners. So Esther Lynn, Caitlin Jakes, Matt Bartholomew, and Shauna Burdan. Please come on up. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for that. We appreciate it very much. Next. Oh, Ellen, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I wasn't sure how they were splitting them off.
Oh,
Good evening, board. Dr. Preisler. I'm not sure how much luck I'm going to have having people here either tonight. First of all, I'd like to recognize Carolyn Michael, as Dr. Preisler shared. She was selected for the 2019 Minnesota Music Education Association All-State Choir member. Carolyn Michael. And I'm still going to acknowledge her. Also selected for 2019 MMEA. This time all-state band plays the trumpet. Aria Mink, who I know is here. Come on up, Aria.
Congratulations, nice job. Good job.
My next honoree for Titan Pride, she and I communicated last week. She could not make it tonight, but for those that had the opportunity to take in the 2019 mock DUI crash that was put on by so many people for our high school students. They actually put the mock crash on 4 different times for the 4 high schools in Leisel County. Tammy Stewig is the coordinator, the person that pulls everybody together, talks to the students, gives them the scripts. The amount of time and effort and the dedication by Tammy Stewig, who had 2 kids go through our high school here at TCU, is pretty incredible. So I told her I wanted to recognize her for all the time and effort. And if you've ever seen a mock crash, we've got EMS, fire, ambulance, police, deputy sheriff, state patrol. We actually had the airlift helicopter flying from the Mankato district and land. We've had some students, I don't think we have any here tonight, but we had one student, Lizzie Christian, who was airlifted out. The whole idea behind the mock crash is to have students, and it's not just using alcohol, but it's texting, it's having a can of pop, it's eating, it's having a car full of 4 friends and you're all socializing, and the driver's doing this most of the time. So it's to make young people aware. We time it, as you heard Thomas and Shauna tell us about Safety Week. We actually did it on April 25th, which was 2 days prior to the TCU High School prom. So Tammy Stewig, thank you for all that you did for that. Tammy Stewig. And we do that only once every 4 years, so every high school student has a chance to see it, but we don't want to overdo it because then it doesn't have the impact that we hope it does. Finally, I know she's not here because she's coaching softball right now, but as many of you might have heard, our original prom plan was to float on a boat. And that boat, that river boat, got grounded the Thursday 1 week prior to our prom. And I've seen Carolyn Harmeyer stressed out a few times, but nothing like I saw her on that Thursday when she came into the office, into my office. Helen having a panic attack. Deep breath. So we went through the breathing motions, and then I said, okay, now we start calling and seeing what places are available. Let me clarify. Now you start calling and see what places are available. So Carolyn got on the phone. We went back to a place we had been in 2013. The Wabasha Street Caves, and had a wonderful prom there. It wasn't on a river, and that's okay. The students really enjoyed themselves, and it was a wonderful prom. But I wanted to give Carolyn Harmeyer Titan Pride because nobody really knows unless you've done that job the amount of stress, collecting money, and breakups of 2 students in the last 24 hours. And then each wants to bring a different date, and we say, okay, yeah, why not? So, Carolyn Harmeyer, great job organizing prom and coordinating.
Thank you, Ms. Fredrickson. We are at that portion of the agenda for the open forum. I have 2 sheets in front of me of group and or persons that would like to speak. Brenda, are there any more that have been turned into you? Before we begin, I need to read just the kind of rules, if you would. The school board is duly elected body formed to conduct the business of the school district by Minnesota statute 471.705 that provides, with limited exceptions, meeting of the school board are open to the public. The board, as a representative body, wishes to provide the avenue for persons to provide board input. The following guidelines will govern this forum. If you would like to speak during the public participation, please do the following by completing the sheets, and we have 2 groups or persons that have done that tonight. During the public comment part of each regular board meeting, the board will give up to 5 minutes per person or group to speak. This time of listening by the board will not take action or discuss the topics brought forward during the open forum. That board has the discretion to have the superintendent follow up with you as necessary, and the superintendent will follow up with the board as necessary. As chairman of the board or presiding office, I have the authority to terminate the remarks of any person if the remarks are considered defamatory, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or invasion of a person's data privacy rights. In other words, please, no personal attacks will be allowed. The board thanks you for taking your time to share your insights. In the order that I have them, the first person that would like to speak is Angie Lavoie.
You can come and
Yep,
sit right there in
you
the chair
betcha.
if you'd like.
And I'm just going to be the timekeeper, so I'll
Okay.
kind of just look at you as the guide. Yep,
It's not long, I promise.
it's okay.
So hi, I'm Angie Roy. First, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak and voice our concerns regarding the Vermont renewal of Ms. Saemrow to I first learned of this on May 4th, and I was shocked, concerned, and I immediately wanted to do something about this. On May 10th at 1:30, we started the petition, and we have nearly 500 signatures of people in our community. These signatures speak volumes. Not one negative word was said about Ms. Saemrow, and everything about her is positive. I'd like to see, I have comments, I have this and that, I can pass around. But we also would just like to say that this feels like a bad decision made, and that everybody in this that's involved in this petition feels it's a great injustice to our educational community. We need more Ms. Telejohns. And we're here to say that we would like the school board to see what Ms. Telejohn means to us and our community. And this is a huge disservice to the children and a terrible decision made. We also know that you guys have a very difficult position, but we'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak. Oh, and I have some more. I have some more letters. I don't know if I sent one along with yes.
Thank you, Angie, very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angie.
The next group that would like to speak, the topic is the large size of the Montgomery and Lonsdale class size. We have three people, Amy Rowe, Emily Hoffs, and Lisa Hoffs as well. So ladies, if you would like to come forward. And once again, it will be a situation of the 5-minute time there. And if there's more to join you at the table, that's fine.
Thank you for letting us speak before you. We have a variety of students in a variety of grades that currently attend school here in the Montgomery building, and have some major concerns about some of the staffing that we're hearing is going to be the sections that are going to be allowed for next year. So currently in the Montgomery building, there are 3 sections in 5th grade, and there are 60 students. And we're concerned because we've heard that next year they will have 2 sections in 6th grade, and to go from 20 kids in a class to 30 kids in a class, when this year the largest section at the current time is 26. And to plan for that, and I know that the Lonsdale building will be accommodating 6th graders next year, right? And there are 33 kids in 2 sections. And so we've also heard that there's only going to be 1 section of 6th grade next year, and I think 33 kids in 1 section is way too many. If we want to maintain the small class size, I voted yes for a referendum so that my children could maintain the awesome class sizes that we have. And having more than 26 in a class has me very, very concerned.
I guess I'm just going to kind of lay out questions, and I understand you're not going to answer my questions, but perhaps things for you to think about. what is the goal of this school district for class size? And are we living up to that goal? I know I've talked to a lot of teachers that are concerned about not being able to do their job effectively if they have a classroom full of 30 students. Teachers that really, really love their job, that are concerned they can't stay in this district teaching if they have classrooms of that size. I have students going into 6th grade. I have a kindergartner going into 1st grade, and I have a 3rd grader going into 4th grade. I've really had wonderful teachers in the school district, and I really don't want to lose some of those teachers because they feel they can't do their job well. I think that's really an important piece of the puzzle as well.
Say I have 4 kids in the district. One will be a sophomore in high school. We'll have an 8th grader next year, a 5th grader next year, and an 8th grader next year. And I have heard that my 2 younger kids' classes that now have 3 are going to be put in 2 classes. And from my understanding, one of those groups, when they started this year, last year they had 2 classes. This year they've moved them to 3. They started off behind for their grade. Next year, if they move them back to 2, they're right where they're supposed to be right now. What's going to happen to them again?
I also have 3 students in there. I have one going into 9th grade next year, one going into 6th, and going into 3rd. I have one child, actually 2 that have some issues, and one of them comes home hating school at this point in time because he's not getting what he needs from his teacher, and he has 20 students in his class because his teacher is too busy dealing with other students that need more help. So whether we need to hire more pairs to help these teachers on top of it as well, but even putting them into any bigger class sizes, I don't see them. I'm afraid for my students to see if they will succeed or not. I do have one letter as well from another parent, which I can pass it to you guys as well. They're concerned. I don't know if that will make a difference or not. You guys can have that. We just want to see our children flourish and become where they need to.
We've heard that some might be 2.5 sections. They might be 1 minute left. That they might be 2.5 sections. I guess I'm not sure how the half section works. I know it's been done in the center a little bit, but it might make a difference to some families if they're going to stay in this district or if they would go somewhere else, depending if their kids are going, how is their day going to look. I also am curious why children have band and choir, or band or choir, and then also have music, but then we have 1st grade students who are combined to have their specials and they don't have it with just their class, which makes it difficult for our specialist teachers as well. So maintaining that size, giving our kids what they need, that all of those options are enhancing their education. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, very, very much.
Thank you.
With the, as we know within the practice, the board can ask that I follow up. I know there were questions posed. I certainly would be willing to follow up and answer the questions that you posed to a representative of the group, and then be able to share back any other pieces too. So is there a representative you'd like for me to be as the main contact?
Whichever one of us you email will share it with the rest.
I'll probably give a call. All right, we'll see who answers first. How's that?
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. And certainly, I'm certainly more than willing to follow up with you, Angie, as well. And thank you for giving your phone number here.
Thank you. Moving on, informational items. Superintendent Preisler, Title I, Title II, Title III, EL, year-end review and updates.
Yeah, we have a team here who's going to really probably combine both the title presentations and EL. So they do English learner programming is run through Title III as well from the federal title grants. So I want to welcome Ms. Molly Meyer, Ms. Sarah Tupy, and Ms. Holly Spessard. So thanks so much for being here, and I'm assuming you need this? Yeah, thanks.
Members of the board, thank you for affording us the opportunity to speak with you tonight. As Dr. Preisler mentioned, we are talking about different sources of funding that help us support our kids in different ways. And so those some of those ways are through our Title I, our RTA services, our TSS services that we're shifting towards, EL services, and our activity enrichment. And so we just wanted to kind of give you an update tonight on sort of our journey, where we've been, things we've worked on this year, and preview what's to come. So this is the mission of our response to intervention team. And so Mr. Julie, Ms. Schliemann, and goodness, yes, Maxfield, and Jenny, they really collaborated on what they want this program to look like. And we're focused, some of the key words that I pulled from here, right, they're really focused on individual specific needs of students, tailoring interventions to them, both academic and behavior, and having those interventions consistently given over time. They do a great job monitoring student progress alongside classroom teachers, and making sure that students are making gains in their rate of improvement targets. And when the rate of improvement targets aren't being met, they meet again and try different interventions. And so I think that process speaks really well to their mission of providing that individualized, consistent instruction for all of our kiddos that might just need a little help in one area or another. So we're continuing with our three-tiered approach. So tier 1 instruction remains that core instruction. And so, as principals and as leadership teams and as generalists and specialists, we all come together during that PLC process to really focus on how we meet the needs of the whole, right? And so really focusing on that, on increasing that tier 1 instruction every week, right? Tier 2 is just an additional intervention for some students who might be approaching the level. And tier 3 are students who need more ongoing long-term instruction to get themselves to grade level. And so there's a great visual there around everybody gets screened for tier 1 using our FAST data in the fall, winter, and spring. And then students who are not quite at grade level get our progress monitored at various rates, just to ensure that the interventions are working. And then we use that multi-level prevention system. So working within PLCs, but then also meeting every 4 to 6 weeks as an RTI team or an S team to talk through as a building who are the students that need support and how can we adjust our programmings and structures and interventions to support them.
Although this isn't about special ed, this process is used then to take kids that go through S-team who aren't showing the rate of improvement that we want to see through those interventions, then move into a special education evaluation with parent permission. That's how that kind of leads into special ed.
So this is just another look. So we generally look at the green area, right, just in terms of color coding, is that universal instruction, that tier 1 instruction. And so a very concrete example, right, would be if I deliver a lesson on one specific learning target, I look for 80% of my class to meet that target within that lesson. If they didn't, I would need to reteach or look and examine that tier 1 approach to instruction. So we built in additional systems of support. So if a student kind of got it, but not 100% or not at the level of mastery that they would desire, then they would enter some tier 2 interventions, some more targeted support for that individual skill. And that's about 5 to 10% of our population. And then 1 to 5% in that tier 3 range where we're working on those systemic interventions. So it's just really those tiers. So I mentioned this response to intervention teams. This is the supplement to our PLC, and it works in unison with that team, right? And so teachers and colleagues are meeting every week to look at that student learning data. When that data stagnates or potentially regresses, they may enter, the student may enter that tier 3. And so they come to S-Team or the RTI team, and they really do a deep dive into the whole child, right? Like what are their academic needs, their social needs, behavioral needs, and really pinpointing specifics that kids need to work on. And then those things are monitored, and towards a lot of how they have run up this study for us. So the point of RTI is to keep kiddos from needing special education, right? We want to catch kids early and intervene early, and so they're set up for success. And special ed is definitely more of a long-term intervention process. So that's kind of what that process looks like.
And then our English learners at TCU, I just wanted to highlight really who are we serving. So our English learners are students from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Sudan, and the Czech Republic. And also, of course, many of our English learners are born in the United States but have exposure to another language or speak another language at home, so then they qualify for services. English language learners are bilingual, but some are trilingual. And the languages we have at TCU are Spanish, Mont, Ishi, Gnerer, and Czech, which is really exciting. This is just a picture of some of our English learners at the high school. And so how do we identify the English learners? So during registration classes, all families fill out a home language questionnaire. And if the parents indicate that a student either speaks or first learned, understands, or has like interaction with another language, then we screen them. And depending on that screening score, then we would see if they need additional services within our school. The screener focuses on reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And then, of course, parents are notified and they have the option to decline services if they want, or otherwise we then make a schedule for them that best supports them. Once they are in ESL, the ESL teachers and the classroom teachers use the Minnesota State standards as the content, the WIDA standards, which are designed around those 4 modes of listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And so students really are learning language through content. So a 3rd grade student would be learning the 3rd grade Minnesota State standards, but we would just be scaffolding that based on their language level so that they're still getting those same standards, the same content, but just at their English proficiency level. An average, I mean, it just depends on the level, but they would be receiving 20 to 90 minutes of ESL services a day. Mostly pull out and then some push in with our parents.
And our teachers work with the general education teachers to do some pre-teaching. So what concepts are you going to be teaching so that we can bring it to the kids and start teaching some of those key vocabulary words that aren't found in conversational English. And I think that's something to highlight, that English language learners can pick up conversational English pretty easy. It's that academic language that can be hard, and that's what we test on, is academic language. So you might hear somebody who seems very fluent in conversational speech, but might really struggle with that academic language that we use in all of our core content. So we do a lot of collaboration with the gen ed teachers as well.
We have some videos of students just describing how ESL has helped them.
When I come here in 8th grade, then I remember the time I didn't know anything about English, Then when I come to high school, then I see that program, I want to enter that program because it will help me a lot better. Then they helped me a lot, like in my homework. Oh, like I remember I frustrated with my homework all year long. Then they started me to help knowing these words and all that. It really works. Like now I know how to speak with a teacher alone. Then it's really good.
Ask Sarah, maybe because it's a little muffled up, maybe she could help us understand what you said there.
So you were saying,
because you speak in English, but it was hard to hear, I think, on that speaker.
So he currently is a junior at the high school, and he was saying he came as an 8th grader, didn't know anything about English, and really struggled with his homework. And I think he said like, the program helped me with all my words, and now I can talk to a teacher alone. So now he is, able to ask questions in his classes and have that language to really advocate for himself.
ESL has helped me to talk to teachers in how to write, in how to talk, in how to spell, to read words.
So she said ESL has helped me talk to the teachers, how to write, how to spell words.
Hi there, I'm Victor. I did come to this country 1 year ago, and I didn't know nothing about English. Now, 1 year later, I'm still learning to speak English in ESL class.
Because that's just 1 year of English.
Yeah.
So that's conversational skills are really good. But that's where English language, our class comes and help them with the other content that's harder that you don't just pick up.
So currently, we're serving 159 English learners, looking at about the same numbers for next year, about 158. Here's 14.
Sure. One area that Sarah, Ms. Tupi, and I really wanted to focus on was identifying kids with English language needs as also special ed needs. So we kind of were looking for something to read, maybe a workshop to go to, and we found this book, Special Considerations for English Language Learners. And we've set some goals for ourselves to really read into that. What I found, our goal was chapter 1 by the end of the year. We're coming close. I'm almost on chapter 1. But one thing that it stands out to me is that when students are struggling to learn, teachers automatically want to help. And a lot of times the only thing they really know how to do is go to talk to possibly, well, they're not learning at what I want them to. They're not learning at the pace, so let's talk special ed. Well, there's a lot of considerations for a student who doesn't have academic language. And it isn't necessarily disability not to know certain things, and we don't know how to weed that out quite as strongly as I think we can. So that's our goal, is to dig deeper into really making sure that we're utilizing tools to make sure we're not over-identifying anybody who doesn't have English as their native language. Because as we know, that's not a disability, that's a strength. And so it can actually be harmful to put those students in special ed because we're not then focusing on that English language development. So I'm really excited. The book is a textbook, so originally I was like, ooh, this is like a college textbook, but chapter 1, you just get going and it's really interesting. So I have high hopes that we're going to be able to do some good PD with our EL teachers, special ed teachers, and our school psychologists in the fall next year, because I think it's going to be really eye-opening for us.
So I'm going to speak a little bit for Ms. Leisel, Dean, our gifted and talented academic enrichment teacher. She's unable to be here this evening. But we also have a mission. This came out of the curriculum development work a couple of years ago with our academic enrichment and gifted and talented programming. And the purpose of this programming is to really highlight students' strengths, as we do in all of our programs. But really trying to find those students in that top 95th percentile and above on our FAST scores and our MCAs, and then couple that with a COGAT assessment that we're giving that measures other intellectual abilities as well. And so through that screening, trying to meet the needs, and Elise does a fabulous job at meeting the needs of our students, sort of on the other end of the spectrum from RTI that I talked about earlier, right? And so there's definitely some different social emotional needs that come out of students who academics have been easier, right? And then when you're challenged, how do you face that, right? When you're used to things always going well. right? And so she has, if you go to the next slide, sorry. She has done a lot of work in developing this K-6 model. So we don't start technically gifted and talented services until second grade, but she has really been working with the PETS curriculum as early as kindergarten. And the PETS curriculum is designed for co-teaching and collaborative models, so she pushes in with some classroom teachers and has piloted that this year, and we'll look to expand more next year through our Title IV funding. And the PETS curriculum really looks at that visual spatial, problem solving, those sorts of things. So it's not based off of whether you can read really well or whether you do the math really well. It's about your thinking. And so she's really working on that with those K-1 students and then starting in second grade as well. So as I said, currently we have district-wide academic or gifted and talented services in a pull-out format in second through sixth grade. She also works in a coordinator role with classroom teachers to supplement and help out with that academic enrichment and in the general ed classroom as well. She's worked really hard to do some great project-based learning with kiddos. The Rube Goldberg project and then the invention convention that many folks saw at Grandparents' Day this last week. So the students are really digging in and they have a lot of planning to do. The kiddos are in charge of their projects, their plans, how they're going to implement it, presenting to peers and staff members. And so these are projects that take a couple of semesters to do. So she's currently serving 120 students, and those numbers are really equal across all three elementary sites. So here's a couple of the pictures. So on the left, you see the Rube Goldberg, and on the top right is Bob, and then in the middle, a couple of the invention convention projects. She's also started for us this district-wide spelling bee that has been a huge success. Kids have loved that. Here are some of our winners from this past year. And Battle of the Books is also a huge hit with kids. So kids kind of compete to see who can read the most books, and then they have to answer a bunch of questions on the Battle of the Books day. And so it's kind of, the kids get really excited about it. Testing their own knowledge. What questions do you have for us?
I just saw something come up on the news today for a proposal on a bill for dyslexia, earlier screening on a bill. So would that be something that would be woven into like a Title I piece? Because obviously you want to look at that early on. And or is that already included in what you do in those services? Or how does that work with your group?
Yeah, it is. So legislation came through last proposal in our Title I funding narrative that we submitted to your program. We had to discuss last year how we were addressing screening for dyslexia. And like many districts in Minnesota, we're all sort of exploring what that's going to look like. We have found that the current system that we have does a really great job of screening. So FAST, the subs tests of early reading, all address the screening needs that are outlined. And once we have that screening data, the students who are either identified as Tier 2 or Tier 3 are also given further diagnostic assessments of phonological awareness, creative awareness, and comprehension, just to see where they're at and see if we can pinpoint any gaps. And based off of that information, we can inform parents about what that means, and then they make the choice to go on and do a dyslexia testing, medical diagnosis.
Yeah. So within special education, Minnesota doesn't recognize dyslexia as a specific category. It would fall under specific learning disabilities of reading. And so there has been a lot of push by our parent advocate groups to have dyslexia as a category within special ed. It has not been successful in that movement, but it's still a really big buzzword, and the parent advocate groups have lots of things they want to see happen with that. So it'll be interesting to watch where we continue to go with dyslexia, especially specifically in special ed. You can actually have a medical diagnosis of dyslexia and not qualify under our Minnesota criteria for specific learning disability. So it's kind of interesting how that all works out.
Thank you.
Good question.
The 158, 159 EL students, percentage-wise, do we have a percentage number on that?
Well, it's different at all of our sites.
Okay.
Lonsdale has just a couple students. The center has the most. And my throwout would be 30%.
About 100 students at the center qualify for EL, so I don't know how many total.
There's over 400
Okay.
in the center. As a district, we range between that 12 and 14%,
Thank you.
which we're pretty much right as a district at that kind of percentage. If you recall, when we've looked at some of our data in the past, we really mirror the state almost identically.
Our center site is about 100. And then we've seen some growth within the Montgomery site, which that site ebbs and flows a little bit more than any other site does. But they're around 30.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the ESL stuff. You talked a bit about weeding out the students that are having, it's more of a language difficulty rather than actual special ed. Have you gotten any feedback, whether it's from the book or the school psychologist, about how you would assess specifically for language-related?
Well, currently, we assess in home language as well. When it's Spanish, we don't have test in newer or check. But we work with an interpreter to do this testing both in English and in Spanish. And then we weed it out that way. And that's the best tool we have at the moment. I'm hopeful there's some other things we can look at, because some of our students, maybe aren't, their parents might speak one of the speaks, and they don't maybe speak exactly what mom and dad speak. So we have some mixes in our languages and in our homes. So it's hard to know too if they're fluent in Spanish as well enough to test at that level that we want. So it is.
And if they haven't been instructed in their home language, like if they haven't been in school, some of our students are coming with limited previous schooling, although their home language may be Spanish or mom or whatever, like they haven't been in school for a couple of years. And so to test them in that language, they haven't had that academic language, so it's tricky.
We're not really, I don't think, seeing what the kids truly know. So that's kind of our hope, is that we can work through that a little bit to try to weed out a different process. And actually kind of right now the guidance would be that you really would like to wait for 3 years of instruction in English before you would move forward with an eval in special ed. But that is not our rule. That is just something, that's one piece we look at to see if that's something we should consider, like trying another year, or, some kids come and we know maybe they have Down syndrome. We know those students. We're not going to wait 3 years for a student with Down syndrome to see if they should be in special ed. So there's always, of course, every exception to that rule, but they do kind of try to say, 3 years is a good healthy base of English to weed that out, but there's no perfect answer there.
Thanks.
Other questions? Thank you, ladies, very, very much.
Thank you.
Nice job, ladies.
It's time for snacks.
Yep. Our next is the 2018 Finance Award.
Yeah, well, I don't want no blood sugar. It's hypoglycemia.
It's really cute.
She's really cute.
Thanks for having me. I don't have anything. So, wanting to recognize our business office was awarded for the 5th year in a row the School Finance Award. So it's the 2019 School Finance Award for the 2018 financial reporting year. MDE states that this award recognizes schools for meeting statutory deadlines for submissions of audited fiscal, financial data, and reporting criteria. And as I said, this has been the 5th consecutive year that TCU has been recognized with the award. So I always try when I come before you guys just to say we have a really awesome business team. We work really well together and really focus on trying to do the right thing every day.
So I really love working with them all, and I'm coming up on 2 years now, so I would not have known the number of requirements and all that goes into running a business office at a school and for a state, basically a lot of the state agencies' requirements. So it is a tremendous amount of workload in it, and it's the same for a big district as it is for a small district. So we have a pretty lean office, and so to get this from a small school, I feel like I'm more proud of our entire team. So yeah, be back at it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and your staff very, very much.
Thank you. Do an excellent job.
PBIS Exemplary Award, TCU Lee Center.
Superintendent Chrysler and board. We've got Mrs. Sammy Conway here and her daughter Ruth. You know, there as well.
So we received notification a little over a week ago from state PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, that Tri-City United Law Center was receiving the PBIS Exemplar Award. And this was an application piece that their team decided to give a try for, and we were pretty excited to see that they received the award. So thought it would be kind of interesting for Sammy as a team member and Mr. Grensteiner to share a little bit of how the work they've done aligned for that award in itself.
So you want to say a couple words on some of the things we do in our school?
So I'm part of the PBIS committee, but it extends far beyond just the teachers that are part of that committee. The teachers, the students, everybody's really bought into it and really likes the program. We've seen some incredible changes with the number of referrals that we've had over the past few years. Since I started 3 years ago, just the way that I've kind of seen the school adapt to it has been really neat. Not only have we decreased the negative attention, the referrals, but we've increased that positive attention on our expectations for our students. And you hear the students speaking the language to each other. It's more than just us standing up at a kickoff and pumping up the kids. They really believe in it. So it's been really neat to kind of see that over the last few years, and just kind of keep growing. When we go to staff developments or other PBIS things, we often find that our school is a leader in ideas that we're coming up with or things that have worked for us. So it's just been kind of really neat and really positive to see.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Mrs. Conway here has it right on the head. It's not only is it something that the adults are trying to lead and model for students, but also it's students modeling for each other, and that's when you know you've really gotten to a point of effectiveness when kids are speaking the language, that common goal that Sammy talked about, and they just really truly believe in themselves and their school. And when you have that, it's just truly special, and it's just a different feel when you walk into a classroom. And the other really interesting thing is students can kind of self-assess. When there's an issue, when there's a conflict, you ask a student, why did this happen? What are our choices? How would we do this differently? They can talk and speak to that, and they will coach their friends at times on what is expected and why we do what we do. And that is really excellent to see, because then the kids truly internalize that and they believe it, and they have those tools to now be successful as they move forward.
So what were some of the things in the application that you had to share as far as within this exemplar award?
Yeah, so within the application, there were just a lot of narratives. They wanted to know kind of what the culture was like, what some of our data is. Our data has shown over the last 5 years that we've reduced referrals to the main office by 71%, which is
huge.
Amazing. When that happens, a lot of learning takes place, and they want to know how the learning is taking place as a result of that. They want to know how we meet, what our systems are. They want to know how we show positive and incentives. They ask how many times we meet, what kind of things do we do as a whole school, individual school, each employee group. They want to know what their role is in the school, not just teacher or principal, but everyone involved. how do we market this as well? That's something that they also want to know, and how does the community accept it, and just a lot of those pieces. How we do our internal PD is another thing they'd asked on the application. How do we grow that knowledge among all the members of the building? So those were all things that were a part of it, and our future plans as well. It's just been a great collaborative effort.
Sammy, are you a member of the committee? Are you the chair of the committee? Are you a little of both?
Committee. For the last 3 years I've been here, I think I've been on that each year, and kind of seeing how the youth enlistment committee has grown. We do a self-assessment every year to kind of see how we're doing on the different tiers, and it's increased our proficiency in each category each year. So that's just been kind of neat to see too, just on the committee side of it.
And Jamie Bruns is our leader of the PBIS team, and Andrea Dubanowski is our internal coach on the piece, and they're kind of a co-leader, I guess you'd say, and all of us are on the committee as well. And they lead it, so it's their baby, and they're doing a great job.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate the report. Congratulations. Next item, building project updates. Carl, Superintendent Preisler.
Good evening, Dr. Preisler, members of the board. I'm Carl May, Director of IT and Facilities. I'll have to say the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks have been more biased towards facilities, and if you allow me just 1 second to recognize a team that has been able to pick up the ball, because I've been really focusing on those things, of incredible professionals that I couldn't be more proud of. First, Mr. Matt Flugel, who's in the room with us, and his associate Joe Pekarski did a very deep dive with our staff and our admin team on what our needs were, defining for technology investments for the next year, and put together a very detailed assessment of what those needs are, so we have a good springboard with which to move ahead. I'd like to thank our key grip, Julie Wires, behind the camera, who keeps the dots connected day in and day out across a couple of sites. Also, our new team member, Ms. Lori Weller, you heard about her, I believe, last month. She hit the ground at a full sprint, is a great note taker, and is getting her arms around some very big tasks that we have for this summer. And then also the ever-present and in the background getting things done all the time, on time, not that the other team members don't. Mr. Tim Eichen. Incredible team, and I'd like to thank them as we've been focusing on what is now kicked off to be 6 phases of construction. 4 projects, right? But really 6 areas of focus. And with that, if you don't mind, I'll give you what has come to become my favorite part of the month. A brief pictorial update of what we've got going on at all of our projects so far. At TCU to Lonsdale, we have the envelope closed. Okay, that's the outer part of the building. It's secure. We got the roof in. We got all of the stopgap measures for water intrusion things being put in place. The last one of those, of course, is getting the windows. So we have the windows starting to go in, and also in that area, you're going to see these classrooms starting to fill up with not just the floors and the wall coverings, but also the ceiling grids and the finishing touches coming together down the road here. So I'm going to highlight a couple areas here. We had a 2-tone accent wall. You're seeing here painted. We've got painting in all the rooms completed, and the ceiling grid kind of following in behind those finishing touches and closing up the envelope. They're doing the masonry finish work, fine-tuning, cleaning, scrubbing, washing, sealing of the interior face brick that we have coming to completion here soon. Also, we have the base. If you see down at the bottom, we've got a kind of a fire brick type of a glazed brick that came in this past week. So putting those final elements in place and doing the finishing touches on that. Later in the week, we saw the arrival of the crane to put the rooftop units that have been sitting in your parking lot there, Molly. So they got both of those things up on the roof, and we got a couple parking spots back there in the bus loop in Lonsdale, and advanced a lot of work for HVAC heating and air conditioning at that site. In our 2-week look ahead, this one is a little bit behind the times, but it was the last one I could find scanned because it was after our last meeting. But you're going to find that the exterior brick is getting done on that north side. We've got caulking in above the ceilings. Again, as the HVAC work gets done, we have to fire stop and smoke protect our cavities in between and across rooms and into the common areas. I mentioned that the acoustical grid is going in. The acoustical grid is another fancy name for the ceiling. And you saw that process kind of going along the way. And you're seeing here the glaze and glass glazing inserts are also being done. At our TCU High School, it was really fun at the top of the day, start of the week, to see this happening. And as a result of this happening up here in the upper right-hand corner, Dr. Chrysler has an announcement, a surprise for you guys, that Jim Rush and I, and in our high school meeting in the trailer today, kind of kicked around as a possibility. And then on this side, you're seeing the subfloor. Yeah, nice. We have the subfloor for the PLTW classrooms coming into place. This is a snapshot of what the floor looks like before they pour all that goop. And again, you guys remember the video of the mud buggies? The mud buggies were going wild in this space today. And this little box here is where they put the power and the data jacks in the floors that we can pop up and use when we need to do something in those classrooms, testing assessments, charging, adapter stations, and things of that sort. The auditorium and the pit. This is a couple of wonky things here. This larger type that you see is a supply for fresh air that goes to the pit. They got that in place and tested and sealed, wrapped with some fiberglass to keep things dry and also moisture free as we use this space in the future. This little doodad in the lower left-hand corner is some of the forms that are being made to sculpt that arched pit. And it actually has 2 dimensions. You've got the arch dimension, and then you have a bevel dimension underneath to allow that concrete to be thick enough to support its weight, but also making sure that we have enough headroom down in that pit. So it's a pretty complex little design they've got going together here at the auditorium pit area now. This is fantastic. Again, I mentioned Steve's detail is just remarkable. So how I remember this stuff, A is for auditorium, B is for building, PLTW, ag shop, construction trades, right? Area B is building. Area C is classrooms. So as we talk about this going forward, things are going to happen at an accelerated clip now because once we have floors, everybody comes in to do finishing touches. So we'll try and reference area A, B, and C by that, and hopefully that'll set that in your mind as we reference those areas. So the look ahead that Steve has for us in the high school, my eyes are getting a little funky and the glasses don't really help. So in area A, we've got underground plumbing, we've got the orchestra pit cantilever slab setup, you saw that. We've got ceiling, and then low grade CMU coming in other areas of the auditorium space where the audience will be sitting. In areas B and C, we've got windowsill blocking. So you saw the windows go in at Lonsdale, right? That blocking is actually the final prep for the water seal and the floor that will receive those windows. As we look ahead to May 20th here, we've got underground electrical rough-ins happening where the audience seating is in area B, and then in area B and C, we've got M&E, so that's mechanical and electrical coming in for interior. So once again, the floors are available, we can get those lifts in there, people can start working in those ceiling spaces. At TCU Montgomery, this was fun. They moved the crane in over the past weekend, and on Saturday, since we had a good window for weather, they were able to set all the steel onto the walls and tack those in place. So this decking, or these joists here, are now ready to receive the deck, and they're clipping along at a really good pace at the Pathologist Center. This is the exterior opening. That's going to become your entranceway with wooden doors and glazing and glass. And they're trucking along at a great clip. This is Luke Renshaw is our superintendent at this site. This is his 2-week look ahead, and as you look, we're already into Monday because our meeting actually isn't until Wednesday. So He has here noted that they're going to be installing the decking and then the brick, and then they're doing the air and vapor barrier application of that exterior CMU. So all that gray brick gets spray painted with this thick kind of salmon colored goop that seals up all of the noxious and toxins that come in from the outside, and then also keeps us from getting water in our walls. Any questions, you guys? That's the update as it is to date.
Yeah, what's the surprise? Well, now that we have floors,
Yes.
they will allow us to come on in during the next work session on the 28th to be able to go through and see the classrooms and the egg shop and PLTW and science. We will probably have to just sneak through looking through a wall or through an opening to the auditorium. They aren't so sure that we can go in there for safety reasons, but yeah, he gave the okay today since they're a little over 70% done with floor pours. So 28th we'll be able to go on and take a look.
That is exciting. I'm excited.
Thank you, Carl, very much.
Too much to excite you, does it?
Nope.
Next item, Superintendent Preisler, enrollment update, please.
Just saying.
We almost need two of them, I think.
Put it on the list.
Well, something that fortunately we saw this month that has not been the case in previous years is that we have a bit of an uptick here in May with our enrollment, which is good. Huge, but it is a good direction where we would hope that it would go. So we were up by 8 students. The majority of those are in elementary. And as we take a look at our historical, in May, this is the highest enrollment we've had since we have been TCU. And so again, that's a good thing. Been holding pretty steady throughout the whole year, and that's kind of what our pattern has been is maintain and hold steady. We are, we had that initial growth at the very start of TCU, and it's good to be seeing us being able to hold through. And so, yeah, 1848.
You said the increase of elementary, most at the elementary. Any particular one of our elementary buildings?
A little bit everywhere.
Okay.
Had 2 at Lonsdale, an increase of 3 at Montgomery, and an increase of 4 in the center, K4s. And then, that's these. We don't see big swings, which is really very interesting. Which is, a good thing. It's good to be stable.
Thank you. Committee updates. QComp, Marcia, Michelle?
We talked, it was a good meeting. We had a long, it wasn't long, but we had a lot of information. Talked about the April release. That one was a little bit of a challenge because it was an April snowstorm and the kid, we don't want to talk about that one. Different buildings working on grading, or this coming release will be working on grading and moving. IPDP, all of the other different portfolios and things that our teachers have due dates on. So we talked a little bit about that, and
Purging and packing was a big part of that.
Yeah.
It has been great, tremendous help for those staff members that are not part of the moving with the construction. They've been helping out. There was some talk about getting some students there to help.
some of the
too.
NHS students.
So a lot of it has to happen that last day, unfortunately for some of those teachers, but things have been going really well there.
Yeah, I think as much as the early release, we really strive to have it be about professional development. We really felt this year our staff really needed that time to kind of kick off the packing things up, and so getting enough boxes, everything like that, and all hands on deck. And so I know that informal feedback I've heard from our teachers themselves, in particular, Sandy Collins has got a lot of stuff to do, and had a chance to visit with her, and she felt good about getting started, and it has it has stressed her out to think about it. So to get started, I was just really proud of her and proud of all the teams that really helped her. I know Amy was a big part of that, so they got a lot done and a lot to go.
We'll get there.
Yes.
And our budget's been right on track throughout the year. And then we also talked about when we'll be meeting in June to start doing our planning for teacher workshop and also for next year's meetings. And I don't think that date's been set yet. But
No.
Thank you, Marcia and Michelle. Transportation, Kevin and Michelle again.
So for transportation, I know last time we had talked or given an update, we were looking at contract, or our contract with Palmer was expiring. We've been working with Lance at K-12 Transportation. Has been in contact with Palmer. He's gotten the preliminary changes that they would like to see in the contract. We haven't met in person. We've been conference calls 2 times. So myself, Michelle, and Superintendent Preisler have spoken once about kind of what our expectations are, what we want to look at going forward. And then on the second call, Lance was involved with it. So we kind of gave him the guidance to go back out, meet with Palmer representatives, and then when they get some of the details that we're looking at implementing, set up, we will meet as a group with Palmer present to finish out the contracts, if we can negotiate a contract with them.
Thank you, Kevin, Michelle, Superintendent Preisler. Southwest Metro, when we get to that point in time as far as the resolution, I'll just quickly address that. That's about the biggest thing that's happening there. We have our next meeting next Tuesday on the 21st. So, new business, soccer, boys and girls. Mr. Johnson, please. And he'll stick around for the next item on the agenda as well.
Okay, soccer information that you have just kind of covers what we're looking at for financial costs, adding it. Our discussions last year when I first entered here in the spring, we were talking about the need for 20 people, boys or girls. We have over 22 of each of them now signed up. We just had a additional 2 girls come in today, and I told them they can stop signing up because we're past our 20 mark. So I told them how the registration works. They're worried that they wanted to fill out paperwork and signed up. But so our numbers continue to grow. Like I say, this has been, we've targeted the 9 through 12 pretty heavily to get them interested. We have a few junior high kids, but it's not as easy for them to put it in my hands or drop it off in the office. So I know there's a lot of interest at the high level, just not, that hasn't been necessarily brought to me. Kind of the important thing and the reason we really like to get moving on this, as of today, we still have 0 games for them. Now, at my present time with my job, I'm doing next year's baseball and softball season and the following year's football season. So I'm 2 years out of doing football already. So trying to find soccer games is going to be a chore. So the longer we wait, the tougher it's going to be to find events. And I think once we get going, then we can kind of have a better understanding of what levels we're probably going to be looking at, possibly with numbers and getting fields set up. That work that I think we're probably going to have to do our soccer practices and stuff over behind the Montgomery Middle School, just because of the busyness behind the school right now and the need to replant the fields. If you're looking there, this is just this is kind of minimal of the things that we're going to need. Even though uniforms, it says 40 of them. I'm not anticipating necessarily 40 individuals, but if you go buy a set of uniforms this year and in 5 years we're in the 50s, there's nothing to say that we're going to be able to get that same uniform back. So it's kind of important, especially with, we might be doing some junior high JV things and some of those kids might go back and forth. So the goal or the vision is pretty much to put our junior high and JV in the same type of uniform. So we're able to cover that depending on what we get for sporting events next year. Questions on the soccer part?
Still no varsity, right? We're going to start with just the JV at this point? Is that kind of our thought still?
I think that's, the problem is we're really heavy with, our boys are very heavy with junior and seniors. And they did play they did a winter soccer league, and they were very, very successful playing against other varsity programs. So,
So that's still in the evaluation.
it's a tough call, and the thing is, when we register for it, we might get 3 or 4 varsity games and not attend playoffs and try to get them some of that, but for the most part, I believe we're probably looking at a JV junior high schedule, but some places might not have a JV, so they might only have a varsity, and I would never do that to our girls at the present time of where we're at, but our boys, I think they probably could compete and
Be successful.
not necessarily a fear, but I worry that they have a lot of success, maybe even at the varsity level, because they've done very, very well.
Good. That's awesome.
Any other soccer questions?
Of the students that have registered,
Correct.
approximately what percentage of them are students who are not in another athletic activity in the fall? Because that was one of the things we really talked about, was the value of adding something that doesn't necessarily take away, but it gives more opportunities to those who aren't involved in other things.
When we had 22 boys and 21 girls, of those at that time of 43 people, 5 of them were in a different sport. One of them is still planning on doing both soccer and cross country. He's already talked to both coaches, so he's planning on doing both. So that one doesn't really take away from anything, so we're really talking about 4, and that would be 2 boys and 2 girls. And, so I mean, it isn't a huge impact. I've talked quite in depth, but, because right now we're talking about a lot of, for girls, it's younger kids, but for our varsity programs, I've talked to Mr. Helland and obviously our cross-country coach, Mr. Fogel, and so we've talked about it, whether it's going to have a big impact, and they didn't believe it would either. So I don't think it's going to be. I think it actually gives a lot of our kids that most of the kids that sign up are involved in no sports. This is their one thing, and if you go over to watch a softball game in the center on an average night, which Dale and I have been over there quite a few times. If you look out in the outfield, there is outfield on a field too. It is full of kids playing soccer while we are playing softball games, and those are the kids that are signed up and ready to go. So it's for the most part, it's a very different group of kids than what we do there.
That's fantastic.
Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve adding soccer, male and female, as a school-sponsored sport starting with the 2019-2020 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia,
A second.
second by Krista. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thanks for staying. Mr. Johnson, Senior Citizens Athletic Gate fees.
Yeah, this, I guess I would just like to recognize our long supporters of TCU, or even back when we were separated, the people that have been longtime supporters of our school. The hope was to give our senior citizens free entry. We're going to develop, it's kind of going to look like somewhat of a credit card type thing that you would have to come in one time and get at any of the 3 schools. We'll have some in Lonsdale, Center, and Montgomery, actually in both schools in Montgomery. And one time they got to come in and show that they're 62, so we don't have to continue to ask them every time they come in, but then they are able just to identify themselves as a TCU Senior Citizen, and they'll be free for all of our sports. This would just be for our, just the TCU people, and I know it's the beginning. I'm sure there's going to be some senior citizens that are just going to, didn't know about the card thing, but it will, in time, it will be pretty easy to get control of. We'll tell them they just have to stop in. We're not going to make them pay because they don't have one to start with, because we'll get it out through mailings and social media and put it in our school, all of our school stuff. But the idea is just to recognize our local senior citizens and hopefully attract more of them and getting into our sporting events. If you're on the previous document, charging $4 a piece, we made $1,872 from senior citizens this year, and that was from ours and opponent senior citizens, so it won't even be that much of a decrease because some of them were senior citizens from other schools.
So I guess for clarification for the camera, we're talking TCU, or for home games only, for the
Correct.
seniors.
Yeah, they won't let you in somewhere else.
Right.
But
We have no control on it.
Clarifying that, yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Johnson, on the senior citizen athletic gate fee? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
To approve the gate fee for the senior citizens age 62 and older as a fee starting with the 2019-2020 school year. I think I heard Kevin say he would make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Josh. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, sign it does pass. Moving on, career tech, education, curriculum, and recommendation.
Members of the board, I believe it was our April regular board meeting where Mr. Matt Flugum and Mr. Perry Schmidt brought forward the full curriculum review. We won't be going through that entire review again tonight, but since it has been a little bit of time, we have the executive summary and give you a chance to ask Matt any questions that you might have in order to make a determination of an approval of the recommendations they made. Any things that you wanted to highlight to make sure to refresh everyone's memories?
This would then include our intro to AFNR as well as the intro to the fabrication, which we do have multiple sections of, many students interested in. As well as mainly looking at that curriculum writing piece, our educators creating their own curriculum and connecting to experience with their students.
I think it's great.
Yep.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the career and technical education curriculum, recommendations, and expenditures.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ashley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Krista. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, passes 7-0. I believe Mr. Flugum is staying for the social emotional curriculum recommendations.
So again, in our review, we identified 5 main components to social emotional learning that we want to make a focus and make sure that we have common language across district on. Recommendation here is to continue to develop and really grow this within our educators and our students as we continue forward as an intentional piece of how we work with our students.
And again, I think it'd be very beneficial, not only to our staff, but also to our students, so good deal.
No further questions. I will entertain a motion to approve the social emotional learning curriculum recommendations and expenditures.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ashley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same side, passes 7-0. Volunteer
Thank you.
dental insurance. Jean?
Well, I'm Jean Kapp, Director of Business Services for Tri-City United. I'm here returning to discuss again the voluntary dental. So Superintendent Preisler, members of the board, on behalf of the Tri-City United Insurance Committee, I am requesting approval from the TCU School Board to add voluntary dental insurance as a benefit for eligible Tri-City United employees. Voluntary dental plans will be fully funded by enrolled employees, and there will be no additional expense to the district. The employees will pay the premiums via payroll deduction and using pre-tax dollars. If it's approved by the board, recommend that we select Colonial Life as the plan provider for the 1920 plan year, which is based on input from the insurance committee and guidance from our advisor, Paul Peterson. Colonial is a good choice for a few reasons. They can match our plan year, which is unique, being a July to June plan year. They have the second largest network in the state of Minnesota, and the plans are employee owned, which is unique as well. So that is great for two reasons. It's great because it reduces the administration that we have to do from the business office. Again, our lean team, and we wouldn't be adding anybody, and Maggie already has a very full plate. So that's great for us from the business office side, but it's also if anybody left TCU, that plan would go with them. They could keep it until, I forget how old, but for a long time. That's the recommendation of the company, and then if it's approved, we will offer two plans. There's a $1,500 max annual and a $2,000 max annual. So I put the rates in there for all to see. The plan would be this again would start for the 1920 plan year. We kind of have a tight timeline. So we'll have kickoff calls even just this week and get one-on-one counselors in to meet with staff. And then they also have a call center. And everyone who would be at the call center is the same as people who come to be on site. So it's been a really great team just to connect with so far in planning and things. So I've been really flexible and accommodating. So excited about that option for staff. There's also an employee optional vision rider. So this is another great thing about Colonial, being that for the employees who enroll, they have the option of adding a vision rider, and that's specific to the staff member. So one can choose to enroll in it, and one can choose not to. So those are the rates to add that vision rider as well. So there'll be more information available for staff on what this benefit would be. Do you have any questions?
Jean, the question you said, if an employee leaves, the plan would go with them.
Mm-hmm.
What about retirees? Can retirees continue this plan?
I think there's a max age, and I can't recall. I'm sure Sue Boxwood, who's the administrator for this, will inform staff. But yes, to a certain, there is a maximum age. I want to say it's 74, but I didn't write it down, so I don't
But they could continue the
Yep.
coverage
Yep.
at their own cost.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve the TCU to offer voluntary dental insurance as an employee benefit starting July 1 of the planned year. A motion by Krista, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Josh. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries, same sign. Food service pricing, Superintendent Preisler?
Yes, we have hit that time of year where the USDA makes all public school districts across the nation go through a pay equity review, and Jean has received the information on that and is bringing forward what the federal government is indicating that we have to do moving forward.
So Superintendent Price to members of the board, I'm requesting your approval for the TCU School Board, I'm requesting the approval from the TCU School Board for food service meal prices for the 1920 school year. The TCU 1920 food service price changes are required by the paid leave equity provision of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. The paid lunch equity provision requires school food authorities to ensure that sufficient funds are paid to the school food service account to cover the cost of paid student lunches. So for the 2019-2020 school year, the impact would be a 10-cent increase on student and adult lunch pricing. The impact for a full school year of lunch if purchased every day is $17.30 per individual. So it's a nice, helpful perspective. There would be no impact for families who qualify for free or reduced priced meals. The required increase to food service prices are calculated using the paid lunch equity tool. It's an Excel spreadsheet created by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to determine how much school food authority is required to increase its average paid student lunch price. It would compare our weighted meal average meal price to the average paid lunch price. And increases are capped at 10 cents, so this is the maximum that is allowed, and it's also required. So if it's approved, I have a grid there of what the prices would be for the next year. We did not have an increase last year. So I have the grid then of what it's been historically for TCU. A while back, Brenda and I did do a review of neighboring districts as well, just out of curiosity, like what does the people around us charge, and we're really in the middle. It's a hard thing to compare because they might be up on a grade grouping and down on a different grade grouping, or higher on breakfast and lower on lunch, or it's kind of all over the board, but which really just signified to me that we're kind of in the middle.
Any further questions, Jean, as far as that? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve a 10-cent increase on student and adult lunch pricing for the 2019-2020 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kevin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. TCU Travel Club 2021 trip to Spain, Portugal, and France.
Again, members of the board, this is a follow-up from when Ms. Irwin came and spoke to the board back in April to share their hopes and plans to take a trip to Spain, Portugal, and France. Do note that this is in 2021 in order to give plenty of time for fundraising, as I believe the travel club is going to New Zealand and
Hawaii,
Australia, and Hawaii.
So it kind of spreads some things out there a little bit, but they do need plenty of time in order to be able to raise some dollars to help offset the cost for students who may want to go.
Any other questions or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the TCU Travel Club trip to Spain, Portugal, France in the summer of 2021.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kevin.
I'll second.
Second by Michelle. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries 7-0. Next item, Southwest Metro Joint Powers Agreement Amendment.
Okay, well, this resolution is being brought forward in order to align the current joint powers agreement and the current bylaws of Southwest Metro Intermediate District. There was a disconnect between the bylaws and joint powers before, whereas the joint powers previously only required a majority vote for adding members. The bylaws indicated that votes would be at a 2/3. And it didn't say about adding members, so we do want to get that all cleaned up. As you can see at this point, the districts that are members of Southwest Metro include Tri-City United, Belle Plaine, Jordan, Prior Lake Savage, Shakopee, New Prague, Central Public Schools, or what sometimes called Norwood Young America, Eastern Carver County, and Waconia and Watertown Mare, and the most recently added school district was Buffalo Hanover Montrose. And so in reviewing and having dialogue with the superintendents, and then also in the governance board, bringing forward to move this from a majority vote to, here's where the strikeout and cleanup would be, that it needs to be of at least 2/3 of the governing board. This is being brought forward, it caught everyone's attention as we have had the 4 districts that I know Mr. Buss has referenced before, who've requested to join Southwest Metro. And there's been a great deal of discussion on that. And the plan at this point would be to move to an associate membership possibility for them, meaning like a 2-year trial, see how that works, because that is quite an expansion. But Dale, would you like to add any other information to that?
No, I mean, and very frankly, it was just a situation of the decision by the Southwest Metro Board to make this an associate membership for 2 years. I think it really boils down to the location of those school districts. Is it going to be a situation where we can really truly, supply their needs? Was a concern by other board members' districts. And I feel very confident in Darren's ability to meet this and really help the southern half of our Southwest Metro moving forward. So Krista, we have that resolution, if you would please.
It's a resolution approving amendment to the joint powers agreement of the Southwest Metro Intermediate District number 288.
We will need a second to that.
Second it.
Second by Ashley. This, of course, then becomes a roll call vote, I believe. Marcia?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
I will vote yes.
Yes.
Ashley? Michelle?
Yes.
And Kim?
Yes.
It then moves forward with a 7-0 vote. Other than that, we are at that point in time for adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:46.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Michelle. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, sign aye. Thank you all for coming.